Hello, Shakes friends. That's not what I say, but it's what I'm saying today. Hey, Shakes pals, welcome to Protest Too Much. We are auditioning for Julius Caesar today, and I'm really excited to go through this play and give some monologue suggestions for some of these characters. This is a show Walking Shadow is kind of doing in the fall. We are doing a mashup of Julius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra. So I wanted to get some resources out so that they were there and available early in the year if any folks are considering auditioning, or if you don't live anywhere near Austin, Texas, and you have an audition coming up of and Julius Caesar, this should help, hopefully. So as usual, we're going to start with a list of characters. There are a lot of characters in Julius Caesar. You have the problem with this play that you have with Antony and Cleopatra or some of the other Roman plays where a lot of characters are in the first half and then they all kind of change in the second half. So we have all the conspirators, and then in the second half they're all soldiers for Brutus and Cassius's armies. So we have this kind of like uh dual world thing happening. So usually when theaters do Julius Caesar, they will double cast. So they'll be looking for folks who can kind of do a little bit of everything. But for your, standout non-double casted characters, you're gonna have Julius Caesar, you're gonna have the triumvirate. So Mark Antony, Octavius Caesar, Lepidus. You're going to have your conspirators, your Brutus, Cassius, Casca, Decius Brutus, Cinna, Metellus Cimber, Caius Agarius, all of them. You're going to have your tribunes, Flavius and Marcellus. Marcellus is one of those characters that is like one of my favorite speeches in all of Shakespeare. And I think nobody like, when you're thinking about Julius Caesar, no one's like, ah, yes, the one with Marcellus. But his you rocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. It's one of the best, most I think evocative speeches in the canon, and it's so uh, I think ignored when we're looking at just speeches in general. So this is definitely something to look out for if you're looking for something that's really fun and meaty without being present through the whole show. If you're looking for something a little bit smaller or a little bit more like scene to scene work rather than an extended character, that's a good one. And then we've got some senators, Cicero, Popilius. We've got our Brutus Cassius soldiers, but then we've got all of our citizens as well. And we have one of the best women in Shakespeare in this play, Portia, Brutus's wife. She has some banger speeches. And I think the audition speech that I have for her coming up is like a really perfect example of how Shakespeare overlaps sometimes, how he really like has this idea of, yes, I think that we should do a strong woman speech here, and then just kind of like does it again in another play. We have Calpurnia, who is a little bit less badass, I guess, but still, pretty cool, the speeches that she gets. So, and then we have a lot of stuff that honestly is usually cut when folks do this show. We usually cut that opening cobbler, carpenter, poet scene. But we do always keep the plebeians because they are the the uh, ensemble doesn't feel like a strong enough word for them. They are the heart of this play. They're like switching sides and going with like wherever the majority is. It's like the core to me of this play. So they're super important. We also have the soothsayer and Artemidorus who try to warn Caesar, but just like a man, he does not listen. So I've bucketed our characters into groups. I am calling them the orators. So we have Brutus, Antony, Portia, Marcellus, Decius Brutus. Decius Brutus has a lot of really cool speeches as well when he's trying to convince Caesar to go to the Senate that day. Not one to sleep on. We have the stubborns. I don't know what else to call them. It's Caesar and it's Octavius Caesar. So Octavius really comes in and takes that second Caesar place in the second half of this show, and we really see that character um, consistency throughout. Then we have our hystericals. So Cassius, Calpurnia, Casca, Cinna, the soothsayer, Artemidorus, Flavius. These are the characters who have as many feelings and want to convince people as much as the orators do, but the orators are a little bit more maybe purposeful with their words. They have more control and more command of their speeches rather than Cassius, who, like, yes, does get what he wants, but like is so overly emotional in the process that it hurts him in the long run. And someone like Casca or Cinna, these are the conspirators who really have the most emotional speeches and the most emotional parts of that conspirator group. We've got our plebes, our plebeians. These are the citizens who keep things going. We'll see a lot of prose here with the plebeians, and there's like a cadence to their speech, which you see a lot in the Roman plays, which is kind of why I pulled from those for the auditions. And then you've got your loyals. This is kind of like everyone else. I'm not going to read down this list, but so many folks in this play are loyal to Brutus or loyal to Caesar or loyal to Octavius Caesar. You've got all of these soldiers and all of these senators who will do whatever Brutus says or whatever Antony says. So you have this group of loyal characters. All right. So getting into it, we're going to start with our orators. And so this is our Brutus and Antony. Obviously, we think about Friends, Romans, Countrymen when we think about Caesar as a play. But again, don't sleep on Brutus's speech at the funeral as well. He has so many beautifully phrased, not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. And I don't think this speech is done as often in auditions as it might seem like it should be because it is fully in prose. So it's not in verse the way that Antony comes out and slaps some verse on it. Like, I wonder, we were doing a read through of the mashup the other day and we were talking about this, and I wonder if it is his attempt to reach the plebeians. He's going to their level. He is trying to um, put himself on, make himself more relatable to them by speaking in prose. And so just that idea of meeting them where they are really made me think of Henry V, when he's at the campsite disguised. So there's a war happening. He's, in disguise going around to try and get the temperature of the soldiers. And basically they're like, the king doesn't care about us. We're just like food for cannons, right? And he says, no, I don't think so. Not that I know, but like, here's what I think. And he has this beautiful speech that really like sways the campfire crew to give a little bit more leniency to Henry without knowing that it's him. And this ability to convince them and speak to them, and he's really speaking their language. And it also starts, I mean, it's such a beautiful start to the speech. I dare say you love him not so ill to wish him here alone. However you speak this to feel other men's minds. Methinks I could not die anywhere so contented as in the king's company, his cause being just and his quarrel honorable. Again, of course, we have that like recurring theme of honor that we get so much in Julius Caesar. But then he goes on, he has this like kind of logic um, bit to his speech where he talks about, if a son that is by his father sent about merchandise do sinfully miscarry upon the sea, is it his father's fault? Um, and is it a king's fault if a soldier dies in battle? And it's just such a beautiful speech. And it's not super popular, especially in auditions, because it is prose. So again, the same reason that I think people a lot of times will sleep on for Romans countrymen's lovers, countrymen, whatever, that people sleep on this speech. So it's a good one to use for Brutus. And then the other one, obviously, like there's no better character to pull for an orator than Iago. And I think that the one speech of his that works really well, and again is kind of underdone in auditions. We get a lot of Iago's soliloquies in auditions, but those aren't really the true like level of his oratorness, his ability to convince. This really comes in Act 2, Scene 3, when he says, touch me not so near. I had rather have this tongue cut from my mouth than it should do offense to Michael Cassio. We know he hates Cassio. The audience is in on it. The audience knows that Antony is not on Brutus's side, but it's very coded in like, I don't want to say anything ill of Michael Cassio, but here's all the reasons he's kind of a D-bag, right? Um, here's what he did that like I don't want to say it. I don't want to get into things I don't want to say. So you have that like layering you can do that all of these orator characters in Caesar, especially Antony, add, which is like playing both sides of the speech. He's trying to convince the plebeians by appeasing to, what Brutus has just said, but also undercutting it completely. Such a great speech for an Antony or really for any of these orator characters. All right, and then the last one is specifically for Portia. We have Kate from Henry IV, Part 1, Act 2, Scene 3. And really, like I said before, she comes out of bed and she's like, Hotspur, why are you not in bed? Kind of the same way Portia does. Hey, Brutus, why are you walking around in the garden in the middle of the night? You're sick. And if you don't tell me your secrets, I'm no better than your whore, basically, is what she says. And Kate has a very similar, very, very similar stream of consciousness here. Let me know it or else he loves me not. And that's how the speech ends. And it's such a great, powerful speech. She's calling out all of these things that are like twisting in his mind the same way Portia does for Brutus. I would say for Portia, I don't know if this is like an overdub because it's so perfect for Portia. I would be worried that it's like everyone does it, but that might be my bias of like I know the weird stuff. So, I would say go for it. Something like this is going to be a really, really beautiful piece for a character like Portia. All right, into our stubborns. And as I'm going through these, this is my first time recording in Canva, so I don't know where this little head bubble is going to end up. It's obviously blocking the bottom of a lot of these speeches, but I will link the deck so that you can get all of them the full way through that won't have my face on it. So this is for Caesar and Octavius mostly. And there's no one besides Caesar, maybe more stubborn in the canon than Leontes from The Winter's Tale. So I like this speech from Act 2, Scene 1. Cease no more, you smell this business with a sense as cold as is a dead man's nose. But I do see it and feel it as you feel doing thus, and see withal the instruments that feel. Though I am satisfied and need no more than what I know, yet shall the oracle give rest to the minds of others, etc., etc. I especially love that we're bringing the oracle into this because that is ultimately what convinces Caesar to stay home, right? He's like, no, I won't listen to my wife, a woman. But when the messenger comes in and says, what says the oracle? They cut out the entrails. They couldn't see, they found no entrails in the beast or whatever. And Caesar's like, yikes, yikes-a-roni, guess I will stay home. So he does have this trust of the oracle, of this higher power that Leontes has here, while still being super stubborn about it. Okay, and then Warwick from Henry VI, Part 2, Act 2, Scene 2. This one is really more of an Octavius monologue because it's very militant. It's very, I like, this is the right way that we're doing this war, and there's no real wiggle room for emotion in it. What plain proceeding is more plain than this? Henry doth claim the crown from John of Gaunt, the fourth son. York claims it from the third. Till Lionel's issue fails, his should not reign. It fails not yet, but flourishes in thee and thy sons, fair slips of such a stock. Then, Father Salisbury, kneel we together, and in this private plot be we the first that shall salute our rightful sovereign with honor of his birthright to the crown. It is so straightforward. It is so sure. There is no questioning for Warwick here. I also like that these two speeches are pretty short. They're not very long monologues because Caesar and Octavius don't have long, long, long speeches. We get more clips from them, shorter bits and shorter bursts. So these really reflect the characters. All right. Moving into our hystericals. Uh, these are the fun characters. I think if I were auditioning for Julius Caesar, these are the characters that I would really want to push for, because they're just so Stupid. So this is your, your Cassius and your, who else do I have in here? Your Cassius, your Calpurnia, even Casca Cinna, your soothsayer. So these are folks who are relying on a lot of premonitions and prophecy based ideas. We have, this is so um prevalent in Julius Caesar, this idea of oracles and prophecies. And so I picked a couple speeches that start to tie into that a little bit. So first we have Coriolanus, Act 3, Scene 3, You Common Cry of Curs. This is when I'm thinking of Marlus or any of the conspirators who are so ready to do away with Caesar. Ugh, you come and cry of curs whose breath I hate as reek of the rotten fens, whose love I prize as the dead carcasses of unburied men that do corrupt my air. I banish you and here remain with your uncertainty. Ugh, he's so spicy. He's so mad. And it's so full of emotion and anger and frustration. And I think that's something that we see a lot in the hysterical characters in Julius Caesar, is that they know. Cassius knows he's not a Brutus. He can't do it without Brutus. Calpurnia knows she doesn't have power without Brutus, without Caesar listening to her. Someone like Cinna or Casca, they have all this rage and frustration, but they can't do anything with it. And Coriolanus in this scene is in a very similar spot. He has been, you know, baited and baited and baited. The senators in this scene are just trying to get a rise out of him, and it works. And he knows that his only job was to go in there and appease them. Like that was his only job, was to go and be like, "You're right. Thank you so much for your votes." But he can't, because he's so frustrated, and it's internal frustration because he can't do that. External frustration because they're baiting him. It's just, it's brutal. And a lot of the characters in this play, I think, feel that same frustration. Then we have something a little bit different. This is from Henry IV, Part 2, Act 3, Scene 1. And this is King Henry IV when he is kind of lamenting on his loss. Oh God, that one might read the book of fate and see the revolution of the times make mountains level, and the continent, weary of solid firmness, melt itself into the sea, and other times to see the beachy girdle of the ocean too wide for Neptune's hips. How chances mock and changes fill the cup of alteration with diverse liquors. Everything that he's going through. Do you remember this prophecy that we would ends with foretelling the same times condition and the division of our amity? This is so Cassius coded. He is so distraught at the division between him and Brutus. He's so wrapped up in his own head that he can't see past it. And he's falling into this trap of letting himself die before he's even killed, like he's so depressed about it and so emotionally wrapped up in his own brain that he can't get out of his own way. And so I think this is a really beautiful for Calpurnia as well, especially the last half. I would probably do the second half of this where he's addressing Warwick for Calpurnia, because it's a little bit more prophecy based. It's a little bit more acknowledging loss of power. So just a good speech all around to have. We've got this angry bit, that frustration, and then we've got this frustration that comes out in a different way. So maybe if you're looking for contrasting, these would be two good pieces to use. All right. Our loyals. Who more loyal than Kent in King Lear or Enobarbus in Antony and Cleopatra? These characters are just like the sweetest, best angel babies. Kent in Act 2, Scene 4, this is a report monologue. So a lot of these loyal characters, a lot of the soldiers have reports to make. This one is pretty specific. My lord, when at their home, I did commend your highness letters to them. Ere I was risen from the place that showed my duty kneeling, came there a reeking post, stewed in his haste, half breathless, panting forth from Goneril his mistress' salutations, delivered letters, spite of intermission, etc., etc. This to me is very representative of a lot of the communication in Caesar, because nobody's doing great. when they're sending messages. Nobody is feeling good. Everyone's angry. Everyone's upset with each other. So there's never like, ah, yes, I got this good report the other day. Here it is. So this Kent speech is kind of like layered with that frustration and that overtone of war happening. And then we have Enobarbus, and so many of the Roman deaths have servants or soldiers who are asked to kill them. Cassius, I think, has to ask like 4 people before he finds someone who will hold out his sword for him to run on. And so this bit of Enobarbus, as he is really like feeling the loss of Antony, and it's not, Antony hasn't died yet at this point. This is Act 4, Scene 9, but Enobarbus has betrayed him and feels the weight of that. And I think you can really apply that to any one of the characters in Caesar who is feeling the loss of their leaders. So this is, be witness to me, O thou blessed moon, when men revolted shall upon record bear hateful memory. Poor Enobarbus did before thy face repent. Sovereign mistress of true melancholy, the poisonous damp of night dispunge upon me, that life, a very rebel to my will, may hang no longer on me. That life, a very rebel to my will, is just such a beautiful, like, we're all depressed, we're all losing this war, like, and it's everyone's blaming themselves. And I think this is just such a beautiful speech in and of itself. But for an audition, I think would be a beautiful like encapsulation of what these loyal characters face. All right, bringing it home with our plebes. So, our plebeians, we've got, the cobbler and all these folks in the beginning of the play, and then they're chasing Cinna the poet, trying to do him a murder because he has the same name as other Cinna. There's so much that they drive of this play. And so I'm really excited for the 2 pieces that I have for this. So the first one is from Timon of Athens, and I love this play. It's got so many great speeches. Not a great play to produce, but I'll figure it out one day. And it starts basically with everyone like talking about how amazing Timon is because he gives them all money. So we have the poet who comes out. You see this confluence, this great flood of visitors. I have in this rough work shaped out a man whom this beneath the world doth embrace and hug with amplest entertainment. He goes on and on. I will unbolt you. You see how all conditions, how all minds, as well of glib and slippery creatures as of grave and austere quality, tender down their services to Lord Timon. Now, this is a lot more, especially because it is, a poet. This is maybe geared more towards your soothsayer, or there's a lot of overlap in these categories, right? Maybe to your soothsayer because it's a little bit more flowery. Maybe to some of your uh, senators instead of the more common citizens because the language is flowerier. Um, but it still has this like reverence in it. And the citizens are reverent towards Caesar. And then they are reverent towards Brutus. And then they are reverent towards Antony. And they are so ready to do whatever, whichever of them they're following at the moment will do. They're kneeling, they're worshiping the man of the moment, and this captures that, I think, really beautifully. And then we have the first citizen from Coriolanus, also Act 1, Scene 1. And in this, our business is not unknown to the Senate. They have had an inkling this fortnight what we intend to do, which now will show them in deeds. They say poor suitors have strong breaths. They shall know we have strong arms too. And it goes on. This is so much more the post funeral citizens. They have been enraged, they have been called up, they have been asked to fight and asked to defend their community from the horrible conspirators. And this like that imagery of they shall know we have strong arms too, like they are ready to fight even if they're not 100% sure what they're fighting for or why they're fighting. They are ready to do it. And this is in prose, so it captures a little bit more of that like commoner speech pattern in Shakespeare's works. So that is auditioning for Julius Caesar. If you have an audition for Caesar coming up, reach out, let me know if you're using any of these monologues. Good luck, break legs. I am really excited to hear all about it if you are willing to share. If you have another show audition coming up and you want some support on those auditions, let me know. We'll do that next month. I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.